Mr. Khalid Bekkaoui. Bekkaoui's work is deeply rooted in themes of love, identity, and culture, effectively bringing together what many consider to be the heart of storytelling. A celebration of human connection across cultural boundaries. His latest novel, very interesting novel by the way, and you'll find out why very soon, Necklace and Pomegranate, is a novel about love, loss, and looking for one's identity. Set against the vibrant backdrop of Victorian Gibraltar. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Khalid Bekkaoui. Pushing myself, try not to fall. So, Mr. Khalid, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you all again. We'll give you a minute to. Can you tell us, for those who haven't had the chance to read this beautiful novel, what is it about?
Thank you, Iman. Thank the organizers for this opportunity to talk about my novel and to meet also very interesting friends. Thank you, Iman. So the novel is set in Gibraltar, and the choice is a deliberate choice. And also it's the Victorian era. It's also the Victorian era is also deliberate because Gibraltar in the 19th century was the crossroad for colonialism, but also crossroad for encounters, cultural encounters, and so a lot of travelers throughout the world would go through Gibraltar, but also a lot of soldiers, a lot of armies, a lot of military equipment would go into the world, into Africa, and into the Middle East through Gibraltar. So it's on the one hand, it's a place of encounter, but also it's a place of hegemony, etc. So that's why I wanted to place my novel in that particular area. And it involves a Moroccan merchant who was trading in Gibraltar, and he has Andalusian ancestry. So his dream was to go to visit Andalus. He was born between his father was also a trader in Gibraltar, and he took over when his father died and his mother also died. But he was born on the Strait of Gibraltar between Tangier and Gibraltar. And interestingly, of course, these two regions look into each other eternally because they are so close. Every day, whenever he has time, the character has time, he goes to the port to see ships, to see people arriving with the dream that he might find one day a lost woman that he used to love, his woman, his sitara. I don't know why this sitara came to the novel, because she is a Indian, but she persistently occurs, maybe because I was interested in I used to love Bollywood movies and Bollywood actresses. So she entered into a novel which was actually dedicated to Al-Andalus. And let me tell you a background to this story, because I started publishing poetry. My first poem appeared in Philistine Torah many years ago when I was a student, and then I published a few pieces in English, and then I did my MA on the 18th century novel, and I was looking for a topic for my PhD, and I was talking to my grandmother, where I am from Berkane, born in Fez, but I am actually from Berkane, on the borders between Algeria and Morocco, and she was covered with all the tattoos, and I asked her, "Are you Arabs?" And she said, "What are Andalusians? Our ancestors came and settled in Berkane, and we became Berberized throughout history." And at the time, I was thinking of writing an MA on autobiography in British fiction, and I said, stop with that subject. I moved to work for my PhD on the Andalus in 17th centuries. So the idea was what happens when English writers wrote about Al-Andalus, bearing in mind that there was a moment of culture and history. And the coincidence was that there are a lot of magic fiction, magic realism in this story, because in my story, personal, autobiographical one, because I was born in Fez in 1961, and close to Bab Boujloud, if you know Bab Boujloud. And close to Bab Boujloud there is a cinema called Cinema Al-Andalus. My mother, in the 60s, used to go to Cinema Al-Andalus with my father. And she saw Walid ibn Khalid ibn Walid movie. And she gave me this name. So my name originally came from a cinema which is in Andalus, bearing this fictional name. When my father wanted to transfer to Berkane, because that's his dream, is to go to his roots, in the same what happens in the novel, because the protagonist wants to go also to his roots, to Andalus. So when he was to go to, he was transferred to Taza, and he remained in Taza all his life until he retired. But he managed to buy a piece of land in Berkane, surprisingly in an area called Andalus, close to Cinema Al-Andalus in Berkane. So all these magic realisms manufactured the novel. And actually, this is my second novel in terms of publication, but it is my first novel, actually. I wrote it many years ago. And there's also a story why it happens to be the second novel, because I gave to a friend of mine in California, in Chicago. She teaches writing, and she took the manuscript and she edited it very carefully, and she sent it through the press, and it never arrived. University address never arrived. I waited and waited and waited, and I was very disappointed that it never arrived. So I postponed that project, and I started the new one, while the other one was like ready. It was there waiting for. So when I published this one, I went back to the first one, and I read it, and I re-edited it, because I found that the Saifuddin, who is the main character, Saifuddin lacks agency in the novel. A lot of agency was taken by other people, and I said, what happens to him? So I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, because there is something I want to share with you here, because this is a novel that I published and forgot about for a year. And when the festival came, I went back to it. I didn't have time to read it, but I recorded it on audio. And listening to it, read by these digital human machines, it's like a step child in a sense, hearing something different. Did I read this really? So whatever I talk to you about today, really not an author, but simply as a critic rather than an author. So I become a reader of my own book. So the main story is about this character who is obsessed with going back and visiting Al-Andalus. And he meets another woman, and he marries her. Her name is Morena. And Morena is already a name which combines moral, but she is a white supremacist. She thinks herself as particularly Spanish, but she knows deep down, and deep down in her unconsciously, that she is also Moorish, because her complexion is a little bit tawny, and so she goes into this struggle about herself. Am I totally Spanish? Am I Moorish? But she tries to deny her Moorishness. So she marries Saifuddin, and I love this name Saifuddin, though it's my own creation, but I love names with Deen at the end because they look historical, like Nuruddin or so Saifuddin. But also in Berkane, we have people with this name. People in our family called Bousif, so the safe. Very interesting. So, and also because the safe is interesting in the story. So he meets Morena, he marries her, but she goes through an ordeal of living with this Moor, whom she hates, but at the same time, because she was living in a convent and she escaped from the convent, so she has ruined all chances of getting married again. One day, she burns his house accidentally or perhaps deliberately. This is something I hope I managed to, that it was both maybe conscious or unconscious, and she flees away to Ceuta. So the colonial history of Gibraltar and Ceuta and also Latin America are all connected in a sense. So she flees to Ceuta, he thinks her dead in the fire, goes through a lot of depression, then marries later on another woman, a Jewish woman from a merchant family, from a Moroccan background in Gibraltar. And years later, after he has visited Andalus, years later, Morena reappears again in Gibraltar. And she goes to the place where the house was built to discover that there was a new house built in the Moorish fashion. And on inquiring, she learns that Saifuddin has married Zohra. So Zohra is an Arab name, but also a Jewish name. At least in the early 20th century, it's also so the story is this: what will happen when Morena comes and sees Saifuddin married to Zohra. So I stop here. Maybe we can look at the ending, maybe in the questions.
Not to say that you should not spoil it. So thank you so much. It's very interesting to listen to what you have to say, because initially when you read the novel, it's a historical fiction and it's set a very, very long time ago. But listening to your answer, we can tell that it comes from your very personal life. This is a story that the idea has clearly come from your mother's roots, your grandmother's roots, your father's roots. And it's very interesting to sort of link fiction to reality. And I would also like to mention that Mr. Khalid here is also a professor of literature and cultural studies. And this is quite clear in the novel because I myself am a cultural studies major. And so I can see the notes of Orientalism, of the colonial legacies that you talk about. But before we talk about these deep points, why necklace and pomegranates?
Sorry?
Why necklace and pomegranates? Like when you look at the novel and then you look at it and you're like, pomegranates, right? Why? Very intriguing title.
Well, Necklace and Pomegranate, actually, as I said, this is a book that has been written maybe more than 15 years ago, actually, though it published a year ago. And it went through different titles. I was thinking of something like The Moor of Gibraltar, and actually when I sent it to agents, it never worked with agents in England or in the United States. So when I sent it to agents, I sent it with the title The Moor of Gibraltar, because I wanted something to as a dialogue between the Moor, Othello, the Moor of Venice, and then other titles like Swords and Butterflies. I was thinking about these titles, and then later I changed sit on this title. And these are tropes and metaphors in the novel, because the necklace in the novel is something that Morena has inherited from her mother. Her mother is also a very supremacist, because he tells her father when he wants to encourage her to marry Saifuddin, she tells him, if my mother was alive, she will ask me she will never agree to marry a Moor. So the necklace, which represents her mother, which her fathers later on would sell to a Jew, because in the narrative, and later on, using magic realism, a woman will recover it magically and will give it to her at the moment when Saifuddin was about to marry, when Morena was about to yield to the idea of marrying Saifuddin, so she will emerge into her world and give it to her. So the necklace is something that changed her, tethering her to the memory of the hatred hatred of the Moors, that the Spanish nation is only a white nation, this denying the ethnic diversity of the Spanish community is represented through the necklace. The other metaphor is the metaphor of the pomegranate, which is basically a metaphor of Granada, and it's a metaphor of diversity, which Saifuddin captures, encapsulates in the novel. He's diverse in his ethnicity, he's diverse in his worldview, he's diverse in his command of also languages. So these are how these metaphors develop throughout, in fact, the novel. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Going back to colonial legacies and Orientalism and whatnot, a very interesting point, and this is very obvious in the first few pages when we meet Marina, we can tell that she sort of has this love-hate relationship with Saifuddin, in the sense that she hates the fact that she loves him. And why does she hate it? Because she hates the fact that she loves a Moor, right? And as you said, she is quite the white supremacist, and she has initially all these stereotypes of what a Moroccan is, what a Moroccan looks like, and what a Moroccan should be. And how does your novel touch upon these Moroccan stereotypes? Right, this is set in Gibraltar, but this is true today. We have a lot of foreigners here today, and I'm sure perhaps you did not expect to find this image of Morocco. We are quite a modern country here, unlike what many might think, and we're not all camels, we're not all deserts, and we're not pirates. Some of us might be. So how does your novel challenge these old and new stereotypes?
Let me tell you two things. When I was working on my PhD on Islamic Spain in English drama, I made a trip to Granada. I took a bus from Fez to Granada, and then another bus from Granada to England. So when I went to Granada, I visited all the palaces, and I saw the glories of Al-Andalus. And when I took the bus from Granada to London, because I needed to do research, I was working on British drama. I needed texts, and they are difficult to acquire at the time. This is not the time of the internet. On the bus, and this is very important, they showed several movies. One of these movies from Granada to England, one of the movies was called True Lies. If you're not familiar with the True Lies, it was in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. It was in Spanish. So I could understand the plot. Of course, it's easy because this is an Arab terrorist who is going to smuggle an atomic bomb into New York to destroy New York. And at the end of the movie, there is something I understand, because he speaks a sentence in Arabic. This Arab terrorist at the end of the movie, before launching his atomic bomb into New York, he says, "Al-bahru min wara'ina wal adu amamina." So he quotes Tariq in Ziyad. But this is contemporary America. And this is a bus, an international bus, traveling between Granada, the heart of Moorish civilization, of the glories of Spain, and then you are showing movies that's really contrary to the whole the industry of the tourism for Granada. So this has marked me tremendously. And all my work ever since that time, I wrote so many books, critical books, are a response to this, actually. And the novel is a response, and my PhD is a response to that statement, to that movie. So the novel is a counter-narrative, it's a counter-history, it's a rewriting of the history of Al-Andalus, it's a writing of the history of who we are, it's a writing of my own personal history, having discovered it through my grandmother. See, it tries to accomplish all that. So it is a, if you want to, I don't want to use the language of theory, but if you want to know the language of theory, it's a rewriting. It's a rewriting, and it's a counter-narrative of the stereotypes about the Moors, so, and in the story, for example, when Saifuddin returns to Morocco, he meets a lady on the boat, and this lady has come to Morocco. She's American, and she wants to write a book, a travel book on Morocco, and she falters at the port, and she falls, and she breaks her knee, and she cannot travel through Morocco for 3 months. So she wrote her travel narrative in her hotel. And a lot of travelers they write about the Sahara, they write about the mountains, they write about tribes, about Tuareg, whom they have never met. And those are, of course, what I'm saying, etc., and I'm going to go into the theory. But the theory structures, in a way, the vision of the vision of the novel. And the writing back is this Al-Andalus, which Saifuddin tries to discover. So when he goes, for example, to Granada and to Spain, he was offered a sword, and this is a funny scene, but it's interesting. I think he was offered a sword by the gypsies, which they claim to belong to Moriscos in the past, who participated in the Intifada of Al-Bukhara uprisings. And when he sees this, the Moro and Cristiano, this is the celebrations. Spain, even now, today, are celebrating eternally the loss, the defeat of the Muslims of Spain. Every day they do it. There are celebrations, and the Moor slayers, the images and the sculptures, they are always there. So and the novel engages with these events, the Metamoro and the Moro and Cristiano. So when he happens to witness these celebrations, you know the celebration, how they happen at the time and even at the present time. So the stage Moors fighting with Christians, and the Moors are defeated, and the Christians raise the flags and the cross, etc., and they celebrate. So when Saifuddin happens to witness this, he get like, because it was a carnivalesque atmosphere, so he enters into the carnival with his sword, his real sword, and he fights and he defeats the actors, the Christian actors, and he liberates the king, or he liberates the king, and he takes the standard, and he returns. So he becomes part of it, but he stops, arrests the celebration of the eternal conquest. So these are moments. There are examples. There are a lot of them. There are fictional ways of writing back to the stereotypes. So there are a lot of similar patterns where the novel tries to respond, but the novel actually responds to the true lies. And true lies, by the way, it comes from medieval times, because in the medieval church, that's where stereotypes about Islam and Muslims and the Orient were manufactured. At the time, it was believed that whatever hurts the enemy is a fact, whether it's lie or not a lie. So, and this is in a book somebody wrote about Daniel Norman in his book, one of his books. He talks about this. So a lie is not a lie as long as it hurts the enemy. And this has I worked a lot on the piracy period and the propaganda of the piracy period, how it recycled all the medieval stereotypes, and then with the colonial period, how also medieval and piracy stereotypes were recycled into the colonial period and the post-colonial in the present day. So when you see news in Britain or in America, you are bound to encounter these stereotypes. So I feel, I try to, at least, whether I accomplish or not, that this is what the novel ultimate objective is about. It is to deconstruct these sort of stereotypes in a fictional way, of course.
I think at this point you just go and buy the book, right? By the way, guys, if you go out and then you... So, I loved what perhaps I think my favorite part of the novel was the setting. It was Gibraltar. And every Moroccan knows Gibraltar, but not many Moroccans have had the chance to go there, even though it's very close by. And for me, Gibraltar kind of reminded me of today's social media, kind of reminded me of Instagram and Facebook, in the sense that it's a very small island, but it's a hub of identities. During the novel, we had the chance to meet Indians, Spanish, English people, and Saifuddin is in the middle of the story, and he's trying to find his identity among all kinds of identities and all kinds of cultures and religion. And I find this to be true today. And how do you think your novel and Saifuddin's journey to find himself teaches us to find ourselves and to build our identity in today's digital world?
Gibraltar and the digital world share this phenomenon of circulation of languages, circulation of identities, and encounters, of course. So Gibraltar, as I said, I see it. There's a theorist who talks about Tangier as a third place, somewhere in between. So Gibraltar is also a third place in between. So we have these third places looking into each other. And when you read the novel, or you read the history of Gibraltar and the history of Moroccan who traveled to America or England in the 19th century and early 20th century, almost all of them would board ships from Gibraltar. So we'll take these little steamers from Tangier to Gibraltar, and they board these liners either to London or to the United States. And I wrote a book on the Moroccan merchants of Manchester from there are a lot of interesting things, about Gibraltar and how Moroccans worked in Gibraltar since the 18th century. Since the 18th century, there are, for example, young people from different parts of Morocco. They would go to Gibraltar, work for a short time, get money, and then go and buy the tickets to work, to go to London and to various parts of England. And some of them were peddlers. And actually we have some autobiographies of these peddlers, Moroccan peddlers in England, marrying English women or Scottish women or Irish women, and peddling throughout England. So it's a place of circulation, and also languages, because when you go to another place, you learn the language, and this is just transformation of identity. The digital world is similar, because it's also languages and transnational encounters, transnational dialogue, etc. But the novel insists on something at the heart of the novel, because Saifuddin, he comes to Morocco, he talks about his father and grandmother as a great deal, he talks about his ancestors, he wants to discover the heritage, he clings to the memory, and the memory is a fundamental aspect in the novel. And so for him, for me, this circulation of identity and languages is very important, and it is very important in the making of the Moroccan identity. When we talk about Moroccan identity, and I worked historically a long way into this, what makes Moroccans in terms of their international aspect, their diversity, it's these encounters with different worlds. So Moroccans, for example, when I was a student, I was maybe 19 years old, and we have this Interrail, you can take you all over Europe. So I traveled all Europe, and I went to Denmark. And I was looking for the youth hostel in Denmark, in Copenhagen. And on the way, I found a bottle of Sidi Harazm. And I always mention this. It's like in Daniel Defoe when he found the footprints on the beach. What? And whenever, for example, there are catastrophes in parts of the world, they will tell you 2 Moroccans died. Wherever this happens, in Alaska, or I'm exaggerating, but wherever disaster happens, here there are Moroccans. Traces in Moroccans. So Moroccans have always, it's in the psyche of the Moroccans, nomadic identity. And the Saifuddin has this nomadic identity. But we cannot have these nomadic identities without rooting geography in history. So the problem with Gibraltar is a colonial city, but also a city for circulation. So there are risks that identity can be exposed to acculturation and loss of identity, and that's what happened in the digital world. So if Saifuddin can give an advice to people using the internet, he would tell them, root yourself in your own identity, cultural background, historical background, national background, and in this way you can approach transnationalism. Because if you simply use geography without history and cultural history, it's like a tree without roots. So the novel is also about roots. Roots when I wanted to discover my own roots, and that's what happened to Saifuddin, which he roots himself in both Al-Andalus, in both Gibraltar, because he says, I am a Gibraltarian, I was born here. When Moreno says, sometime you must go back to your country. He says, no, my country is here, in Gibraltar. This is Jabal Tariq. My ancestors landed here. And that's why I insisted on Jabal Tariq. So it's also Moroccan. And by the way, the English couldn't have, historically, or would have found difficulties in maintaining Jabal Tariq without the Moroccans, because it was boycotted not only boycotted, it was besieged by the Spaniards, and only the Moroccan helped them because they carried water every day, tons of water, carried food, and of course we know the relations between Moroccan monarchs and British monarchs with Gibraltar. So that's what I can say about these two modes of circulations, where one has to be equipped with historical identity, with cultural identity, before navigating either on the internet or visiting transnational spaces like Gibraltar. And we are talking here about not simply Gibraltar, but also diaspora, wherever diaspora takes people to.
Thank you very much. And we cannot talk about Saifuddin's journey and his journey towards finding who he is as a person without talking about the three amazing, strong, vengeful, some of them, women in his life, which are Marina, Zohra, and Sitara. How did you come up with such strong women, yet very different women?
So initially I wanted to write a story about Al-Andalus, about myself, about my family, and Al-Andalus. So I needed two characters basically. I needed Saifuddin, and I needed Morena with her complex character, with her ambivalence and her self-hatred and self-glorification at the same time. And I don't know how Sitara, as I said, how Sitara got smuggled into the novel and then became dominant with her elephant. But I don't know how to justify her presence. Literally, I don't know how to justify her presence there. But the novel it had to move towards Morena burning the house, because she burned the house when Sitara left. she gave him statuettes. And you know the Indian statuettes, they're very erotic statuettes. So when she found them in his box, together with the dancing clothes of Sitar, she said, "What is this?" And she guessed. She said, "They belong to a woman," etc. "Are you in love with this woman?" He says, "Yes," he cannot deny it. And that's what really made her so jealous, so hateful of these nations, barbarians, who cherish carnality and bestiality. And it's this which hastened the burning of the house. So when she burned the house, then the plot has to move into finding a replacement. So she goes to Ceuta, which is another colonial period, or colonial setting also. When I was a child, my uncle used to work in Benin Sar, close to Melilla. So as a child of 14, we used to go and to fish in Melilla and return and go and return into Spain and into Morocco. So this idea of crossing borders, we did it spontaneously. So when Morena burns the house, there comes also Zohra, because also Zohra shared the same cultural heritage. The Jews of Andalusia suffered equally terribly. So there are Moroccan and they were refugees in Fez and all of the places in Morocco. So I needed to connect him with other ethnicities, other religions, and that's why Zohra went with Saifuddin to visit Al-Andalus, while Morena never went. When he proposed to her, she said, yes, one day we can do it, but she was kept postponing, and then she never really agreed to visit, because she was saying, how can you take all this, because she saw his documents, house ownership documents and the keys. She said, are you foolish? Are you going to carry all these keys and go and open doors in Al-Andalus? It's impossible. So but it's symbolic, of course. So he visited Al-Andalus and Granada and Valencia and Cordoba with someone who shared the memory and the history. So in a way, one character dictated the other. So Sitar, when I think of her, what is she doing in the novel? I would think that she connects with Saifuddin in terms of this subaltern kind of solidarity, because he is one of the subalterns in the novel, and he is one of the so it connects him with Zohra and with Sitara to, in a way, broaden the history of victimhood, not simply to Al-Andalus, but also to India. The history of colonialism, hegemony, but also there are many references in the novel to Latin America. So, her role is to broaden it within these larger geographical settings.
I would like to take the time to remind our audience that this is a historical fiction. And so we're looking at essentially a novel that mixes between historical accuracy and fiction. And this is very fascinating for me. As our final question, and sort of, I would say, a little funny question to ask, is, so the novel is called Necklace and Pomegranates. If you had to describe your life in one fruit, what would it be?
I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. I can only comment on history and fiction. Yes, it is a historical novel. I did a lot of research on Gibraltar. I did a lot of research on Andalus, a lot of research on the Victorian era, etc. but it's also fiction. It's also, and I try to maintain as much as possible the realism in the descriptions, but it is also but it's also, it goes beyond realism. I use a lot, which I love so much, I use a lot of folk tales, and I love folk tales because when Seyfuddin travels through Spain, sometimes when it is raining, and so he stops at an inn, and you know the Spaniards, they are storytellers like Moroccans, so he will hear all these stories of the glories of Islamic Spain recounted through Spanish storytellers. And also I try to use a lot of proverbs that I manufactured, created myself, proverbs. I also paid a lot of attention to language, because it's not simply the language. I try to craft it in a way so that it calls attention to itself, not attention only to the realism behind it, but also call attention to the words. The words. I don't have a love relationship with English in the sense that maybe some people have, but I find the love of crafting with language, which is really interesting. The images that language can create is really the images that it can evoke. So I dwelt on a great deal on sentences, writing sentences, finding the right words that convey the right image to me, that convey really the right image. And also I allowed a lot of magic realism to get into the novel, because you know the 18th century novel is based on the premise that anything should be believable and possible. But there are certain events in the novel which are not possible, or which cannot be explained in a logical way. And I love that. I love this shift into the magical, because this shift away from history, I think it enriches the work. To describe my life in terms of a fruit, I don't know how I can answer that. But I can tell you, coming from Berkane, I love oranges and tangerines.
Okay, we will move into
Thank you so much for being here, our dear audience, and thank you so much, Mr. Khalid. So, unfortunately, due to time constraints, I will take one question, no opinions, one question. Who can come up with a very, very smart question? Any volunteers? I won't judge you if it's not very smart. No? Come on, guys. I don't have to. You reminded me of my students when I have to choose one person in the audience. Okay, so if there are no questions.
That's a good question. Where can we buy your book?
For the time being, I brought a few copies for friends, but later on I can send them maybe to the bookstore.
Do they have them at the bookshop?
No.